Hospital Porter's pride and dignity stop the New World Order. Welcome to Panwo TV. My goodness me, there's big news, guys. Big news about Three IAtlas. Now, if you want to know, if you don't know what Three IAtlas is, I mean, goodness me, where do I start? Do I have to recap everything I ever do on this channel in each individual video? I can't do that. There's a link in the description box, as per her Panwo TV tradition, where you can watch, read, or listen to the background material I produced on this particular subject. But basically, 3 IAtlas is an interstellar object. It's an interstellar object, the third one apparently, the third one has been spotted in space and is recognized officially by the astronomers. That's literally it actually entered our solar system, God knows when, but it was detected on the 1st of July. Of this year at the asteroid terrestrial impact last alert system in it's a network of telescopes in Hawaii, South Africa, Chile. It was spotted by the Vera C. Rubin Observatory in Chile as part of this network, which you can see behind me. That is actually the Vera C. Rubin Observatory, which is still in its testing stage. It's brand new, just been built, still in its kind of experimental testing shakedown period. But I mean, it works. It definitely works. And like I said, I go into more details in the background link. I've got an entire portal on this interstellar object, and it was hurtling into the solar system at great speed. In fact, it's the fastest object ever spotted. It's 68 kilometers per second, which is by far the fastest object ever seen in space. Much faster than Oumuamua or 2I Borisov, definitely. And there were some historical plates produced which detected it as far back as the 14th of July. It hadn't been spotted, but it was picked up by the telescope and it was on the historical plates, but the astronomers missed it. Now, what it was, no one's sure, but it was pretty soon it was discovered to be on a hyperbolic track. This meant it was not orbiting the sun. And it was passing through the solar system from interstellar space. It was going far too fast and was on the wrong course to be ever in orbit around the sun. Now, what it was, no one was sure. Was it just a solid lump like Oumuamua, or, well, that's debatable, or was it a comet like 2I Borisov? 2I Borisov is a pretty ordinary comet, really. In fact, it's about as boring as interstellar objects get. It turns out that then what happened was astronomers discovered what they believed was a coma around it. This is a cloud of dust and gas, which you find emitting from a comet. And therefore, it's immediately classified as a comet. If you look at the actual database where people keep an eye on it, and you can find out. You can go to various databases. It's actually quite interesting. If you go to the various databases, there's actually a great page where you can follow it. Actually, we'll go and have a look at that now here. This page here. And you can just follow its progress on this. It's called thesky.com. It's easy if you do it that way. And there it is. This is today's date, and this is its location. Somewhere, it's getting closer to the orbit of Mars now, and it was detected somewhere around about here, around about the orbit of Jupiter, and it's now there. And you can see this symbol if you look at the key. I mean, I can't access the key right now. Like you get on a map with different symbols, churches, houses, castles, things like that. This is this key here. This is a comet. It's C25N1. It's 3 IAtlas, or C2025N1, which is also a cometary designation. So that means according to them, it's a comet. Or is it? You see, a lot of people have questioned whether it's a comet or not. And the biggest name should be no surprise to you if you're a regular viewer. The biggest name and the first and the loudest name to actually to question that was Professor Avi Loeb. Now he's not just some lunatic with a tinfoil hat, in Wellington boots, standing on some Somerset hillside with a telescope pointing at the sky. No offense, Winkeech, but he's the Frank B. Baird Jr. Professor of Science at Harvard, the Harvard Center for Astrophysicists. Harvard University's part of the Ivy League in the United States. It's one of the big, it's equivalent of Oxford or Cambridge, Because he also was the first person that noticed that Oumuamua might actually be an artificial object. And he runs the Galileo project, which is trying to study UFOs. Now, he's published some papers suggesting an alternative hypothesis that this might be artificial. This might be some kind of technology. And this, as I explain in more detail in the background publications, the various videos, radio shows, and articles I've written about this, there are it's partly circumstantial. There are odd coincidences around 3I Atlas, specifically its motion. Now, interstellar objects can just come from anywhere on the celestial sphere. And indeed, Oumuamua and Borisov just flew in from like random spots on the celestial sphere. And but the 3I Atlas is actually distinctly zodiacal. Zodiacal means it's passing directly through the plane of the ecliptic, which is this narrow disk of space in which all the planets orbit. This is a disk just like 10 degrees wide or something on the sphere. The chances of that happening randomly are about 1 in 500. Now, it's no one knows exactly how big it is, and there's been a lot of debates and a lot of questioning, including Avi himself has done this. Its size is unknown, but it's extremely bright. So this is very unusual because it must be very, very large, far bigger than Oumuamua or Borisov. Professor Loeb actually estimated on the basis of estimates on the basis of standard reflectivity of asteroids, 20 kilometers. You can work out, if you know how reflective it is, you can work out how big it is from how bright it is. Now, the reservoir of solid matter in the universe, in interstellar space, is tiny, and one should only expect to see something that big every 10,000 years or so. So are we just lucky? That's the question. Are we just lucky? Also, I mean, we'd have to be very, very lucky indeed. Of course, the skeptics will say it's a coincidence. This is typical of what I say in my skeptic talk. The skeptics will just say, well, it's just a coincidence. And again, where they won't declare a cutoff point, so there's no point arguing with them. That being said, scientists say, well, the actual size of the object is small, but its coma is what makes it bright, which is the case for a comet. It has a coma and a tail. Yeah, this coma is very, very it's very, very large. Very large indeed, if that's what it is. Also, we're also very unlucky because unfortunately, because the Earth is probably in the worst possible position imaginable to observe this object as it reaches perihelion, its closest point to the sun. Literally, if only it arrived 6 months earlier or 6 months later, we'd have a ringside seat. But we're absolutely on the opposite side of the sun. It's literally during its closest approach to both the Earth and the sun and the inner planets, we're going to be on the opposite side of the sun. We won't see it because it'll be daylight hours and the sun will be drowning out everything. There may be a reason for that, actually, which we'll go into. But the other planets are going to enjoy a spectacular view of 3I Atlas. It's going to pass by Mars just 0.2 astronomical units. An astronomical unit is the average distance between the Earth and the sun. And then Venus is going to get it's going to get quite close to Venus, 0.6 AU. So not quite so close as Mars, about 3 times as far, but still close. And finally, Jupiter, 0.3 AU. Now, Professor Loeb actually calls that a grand tour. It's as if somebody wanted to get a really good look at the inner planets, with the exception of Earth. It's coming close to all the planets except Earth, which is basically avoiding. If it wanted to avoid the Earth, it's also chosen the best track. If it wanted to see all the other planets and avoid the Earth, it couldn't have chosen a better track. The odds of that are about 0.005%. Also, it's retrograde. Now, that means it's approaching Mars and Venus head on. So this will make it quite, if, for example, it wants to drop off what Professor Loeb calls gadgets, which could be anything, it's very easy to do so. You wouldn't need much delta V, change in velocity, to act. It would be very convenient. And it's going to go. So it's going to go past Mars. It's going to go past. Its encounter with Mars is on the 3rd of October. It's going to come within 0.2 AU of Mars, I believe. I think it's the 3rd of October, and it could drop something off. And it's going to go on to Venus, 0.6 AU, and finally Jupiter. And it's going so fast, like 68 kilometers per second. It's rocketing along. It will have left the inner solar system by March next year. It's actually due to pass Jupiter in March, if it stays on its projected course. But that's not the end of the anomalies. And indeed, I go somewhat into this, and say go to the background link, and you'll see it. There's physical properties on this object that have made Avi Loeb and several other scientists doubt the official designation. It's a rogue comet. And as I've said before, it takes guts to do that, because scientists, they say, "Oh, we'd love it to be we'd love aliens to be real," but do they really? I think they're scared that this is aliens, and the biggest reason they're scared is that they're going to owe all of us a massive apology, and not least Avi Loeb. I mean, Jill Tarter, he was on a Zoom call with Jill Tarter, and she swore at him. I mean, is that scientific? So, for example, the scientists are saying, well, it's got a cometary tail, it must be a comet. Well, yes, it has a tail, but the tail is very unusual. I mean, in several ways. Most significantly of all, it points towards the sun, not away from it. Cometary tails usually point away from the sun, because the tail is caused by solar wind pushing particles out of the coma, out and away from the sun. Now, this one's tail points towards the sun. Now, that's not completely unknown. They're called anti-tails. They're not totally unknown among comets, but they're very rare. Less than 4% of comets have them. Now, of course, when particles are ejected that are too small to be carried by solar wind, and then they tend to form some of them get electrically charged and drawn towards the sun. But you see, there's 3I-Atlas has this quite significant anti-tail. It has what looks like a tiny tail, the normal kind, that points in the usual direction away from the sun. But this is very small and tenuous. It's almost invisible if it even exists. But the most enigmatic, this is where we come to the latest news, the breaking news that I have to bring up with you. It's brightness. This is the most enigmatic feature of the object. It's brightness. And there's been questions over how come it's so bright. And Loeb, for a while now, has begun to doubt whether so much light could really originate from the reflection of sunlight off the coma. And he's written an article that gets straight to the point. It's called "Does 3I-Atlas Generate Its Own Light?" And I'll show it to you here. We'll have a look at it. Let's have a look at it. This is just so understated. It's unbelievable. Where is it? Here we go. It's just so understated. The implications of what we're looking at here is so understated. It's really, really amazing. He's so calm and collected. He says, he talks about, this is the best image we have here. There's the tail, the anti-tail. This pointing towards the sun. You see, this was captured. This is the best image we have here. I actually put it in the titles. 21st of July, 2025. This glow from the coma is heading towards the sun. There's no evidence, or very little evidence, for any form of bright cometary tail in the opposite direction, which would be that way. He says here, the glow, this bright light, was interpreted as reflection. It's a reflection of the sunlight, the evaporation of dust from the sun-facing side of 3I-Atlas. And he's written some scientific papers, but this is like a blog article, which is a little bit more comprehensive. But he says here, this shows a steep surface brightness profile of the glow with a projected power law slope of -3, which implies 3-dimensional emissivity profile with a radial power law slope of -4. Now, if you understand what that means, you're one step above me, because I don't. But basically, this is the distance from the nucleus in arc seconds. That's the amount. This is literally the apparent size of 3I-Atlas on the celestial sphere. And you can see here, we see normalized surface brightness. This is how bright the light is. Don't worry about these figures here. Now, that's arc seconds here, and these here are figures of illumination, levels of illumination. And as we see here, it peaks, distance from the nucleus, it peaks there, and then it drops off as you get closer to the edge of the nucleus. And from what I gather, on a normal comet, you would get more brightness due to reflection further away. Yet if something say there was a light bulb inside it, you'd get this figure. You'd literally get more brightness inside than outside, on the outside of it. And it just says here, together with my brilliant colleague, Eric Quito, we realized that the observed slope of -4 is consistent with an alternative model in which the dust outflow around 3I-Atlas is illuminated by a central source. This model naturally accounts for the steep brightness profile, since the outflow density slope of -2 is accompanied by a radial decline of the illuminating radiation flux, with an additional declining slope of -2. If 3I-Atlas generates its own light, then it could be much smaller than expected from a model in which it reflects sunlight. Wow. So it wouldn't have to be 20 kilometers wide, as he's often said. It could be smaller. So you said, oh, if it's smaller, then that's sort of like well, you said, though, if it's smaller, then it's more likely to be natural, because because as he says here, the limited reservoir of rocky material in interstellar space, etc. One object like that for 10,000 years or longer. This next bit is it's funny, because this is what I mean by understating. In the middle of this scientific document, this basically a blog article about a scientific paper he wrote, which, let's face it, could be one of the most significant discoveries of the millennium. Then he slips in a picture of himself playing football. The ball looks like the Earth, which is interesting. And he says here, last night we had the annual soccer cup match between the faculty and students of Harvard Institute for Theory and Computation. Although I scored 2 goals, the students won 3-2. So this is going to go down in history, that a scientist would talk about something with such incredible a discovery of such incredible implications. And let's face it, you probably already guessed what those implications are. And he slips in a little bit about himself, about playing football. There's a photo of him playing football. What a guy! He's such a character. Now let's get back to the aliens. Football. Honestly, football fans, nothing matters more than football to a football fan. First, I calculated the luminosity of 3I-Atlas needs to be in order of 10 gigawatts. Second, I realized that the steep brightness profile around 3I-Atlas implies that the nucleus dominates the observed light. This must hold irrespective of the origin of the light. The illumination by sunlight cannot explain the steep profile of scattered light. And it gives some more details here, which is, I don't understand all the details of this. Sunlight would dominate the illumination in this model because a rocky nucleus would reflect only a small fraction of the solar intensity from a much larger area than the 10,000 kilometer region observed. That's the coma observed in the Hubble Space Telescope image. Another possibility for the steep brightness profile in the scattered halo is made of icy particles that get evaporated as they move towards the sun from the warm sun-facing side of 3I-Atlas. This would explain why there is no tail of these scattered particles, requiring evaporation time must be in the order of 10 minutes. But it's unclear whether this would lead to the observed brightness profile. Right, so basically saying that it's something of effective ice. But he says here the simplest interpretation is that the nucleus of 3I-Atlas produces most of the light. I calculate that the nucleus cannot be a thermal emitter, that's given off heat, with an effective surface temperature below 1,000 degrees Kelvin, or else its peak emission wavelength would have been longer than 3 micrometers, with an exponential cutoff of shorter wavelengths, incompatible with the data. At higher effective temperatures, the required luminosity of 3I-Atlas can be obtained from a source diameter smaller than 100 meters. A compact bright emitter would make 3I-Atlas of comparable size to the previous interstellar objects 1I Oumuamua, 2I Borisov, making more sense than 20 kilometer size. Yeah, but it says here, what could constitute the required light source? First, I calculated a primordial black hole. My God, there's a black hole coming. And it's not, though, you see, with a Hawking temperature of 1,000 degrees Kelvin, will produce only 20 nanowatts of power. Now, Hawking refers, of course, to Stephen Hawking, the famous wheelchair-bound scientist who worked out that despite the idea that the black holes only suck in everything and they radiate nothing. That's why they're black. They don't give off any light. They do give off what he calls Hawking radiation. He named it after himself. Now, a natural nuclear source could be a rare fragment from the core of a nearby supernova that is rich in radioactive material. Blimey. This possibility is highly unlikely given the scarce reservoir of radioactive elements in interstellar space. All right, so a bit of a supernova coming our way. Well, the skeptics will say, the answer from the skeptics is it doesn't matter how unlikely it is. right? Even if it's a 1,000,000,000 to 1 chance, we have to accept that other than aliens. We always accept every possibility that's physically possible, regardless of how unlikely it is, even if it's something we just make up off the top of our heads, because reasons based on a principle they don't understand. They never explain this. They never explain this principle. This is what I call the clown's day off fallacy. You can even make something up. It doesn't matter. As long as it doesn't involve aliens, it wins by default. Alternatively, 3I Atlas could be a spacecraft powered by nuclear energy, and the dust emitted from its frontal surface might be from dirt that accumulated on its surface during interstellar travel. Hell. Don't they clean it on the journey? This cannot be ruled out. But it requires better evidence to be viable. Insisting on 3I Atlas being a natural object, one might consider the hypothetical case of an object heated by friction on the ambient medium. In this case, the momentum flux of dust flowing out of the object must exceed the momentum flux of ambient medium in the rest frame of the object, the so-called ambient ram pressure. Otherwise, the dust outflow would be suppressed by the ambient medium. What does this condition boil down to? Now, he's talking about whether it's glowing because it's hot, because it's rushing through medium, which is causing a buildup of pressure on the front and friction. You get this with some aircraft, very fast aircraft. People who've been on Concorde say that even though it flies at 60,000 feet, much higher than most aircraft, and out there it's extremely cold, when you put your hand against the window, it's actually warm because the friction of the air and this ram pressure, this buildup of heat within the pressurized air, causes an increase in temperature. Given a mass loss rate of 6 to 60 kilograms per second, which again, it's a factor of 10. That's a massive estimate. The ejection of speed of dust at 2 to 20 kilometers per second, again, a tenfold estimate, that were inferred from the Hubble Space Telescope image. I calculated this model is marginally ruled out. In addition, the required ambient medium density is larger by many orders of magnitude than the mass density of the zodiacal dust and gas through which 3I Atlas is traveling as it traverses the main asteroid belt. This means basically that there's not enough, it's not thick enough, the interplanetary medium, the zodiacal gas and dust, to generate that kind of heat in terms of based on the velocity of 3I Atlas. This leaves us with the interpretation of the brightness profile around 3I Atlas originating from a central light source, its potential technological origin, and he refers to previous papers here, and fine-tuned trajectory, which we've already talked about. The new interstellar object 3I Atlas is expected to pass within a distance of, there's the distance, 29.96 million kilometers. Now, that's 2 astronomical units. It sounds like a long way, but in cosmic terms, that's scraping the paint off. From Mars on the 3rd of October, right. This would offer an excellent opportunity to observe 3I Atlas with the Hertz high-rise camera near Mars, one of 6 instruments aboard the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter. That's right, Alan. There's actually more than one. There are actually 5. I believe are there 5? Are there 5 orbiters around Mars at the moment? Yes, we have the Mars Odyssey, the Mars Globe Observer, the Tianwen-1. That's 3, and I think there's 2 more. So there's quite a few. So yeah, absolutely. Just the same way they want to use Juno, the Juno craft, it's orbiting Jupiter, to intercept. It can be diverted. It's just got enough. It's got just enough fuel left. They're planning to deorbit it into Jupiter in November. It has just enough fuel left for them to send it to intercept or to get quite close to 3I Atlas. They could divert it from its orbit around Jupiter. Whams! Assuming, of course, that 3I Atlas stays on course. So that's not long now. 3rd of March. It's only like 5 weeks away. Not long. They could use the high-rise camera they could repurpose the camera, which is designed for studying Mars, to gather data on 3I Atlas. And that NASA have responded favorably. It will be challenging to observe 3I Atlas from Earth around the same time, again, because the proximity of 3I Atlas in our sky to the direction of the sun, yeah. It's a long way away, and we'd have to wait. It was only just before dawn or just after dusk would be the only chance we'd get. The more data we collect on 3I Atlas, the closer we will get to understanding its nature. Obviously, that goes without saying. I mean, this is just incredible. I mean, what could actually? I mean, what actually? They're saying it's giving off. It's radiating. It's emitting electromagnetic radiation, including visible light. I mean, and I said he says it in such an understated way. I mean, maybe he's trying to overcompensate for his own like radical theories. So he will just try to be use as staid and as conventional tone as possible, and slip in a little photo of himself playing football. But this begs the question: what can it be? What other alternative is there to it being some kind of technology? What objects in space actually glow apart from stars? And 3I Atlas is obviously not a star. It's not a black hole. And there's no, in terms of solar reflection, you see, this appears to be ruled out. So what other alternative is there? And is there a connection to the fact that, well, let's face it, let's get down to it, shall we? UFOs often emit electromagnetic radiation, including visible light. And they also emit other forms of radiation. Some of which is harmful. If you see what happened to people like Larry Warren or or other witnesses, John Burroughs as well, and those two ladies in the US as well. What happened to them? I can't remember their names. It'll come to me in a minute. But Cash Landrum, yeah, which ironically was the same day on the other side of the Atlantic. Yeah, they all suffered what appears to be damage done by exposure to electromagnetic radiation. So another thing, it's very, very bright, but it appeared very suddenly. As I say, historical plates go back another couple of weeks. They reveal that it did emerge unnoticed as early as June 14th. That's the earliest trace, a fortnight before it was actually spotted. But there's no trace of it any earlier. And some people say, well, that's because it was approaching from the constellation of Sagittarius. Now, that's a notoriously easy place to lose sight of bodies because the background is at the core of the Milky Way. So there's huge numbers of stars in the background. There's almost a solid lump of stars. And it's so easy just to lose it among that clutter. Or it might have emerged from a wormhole. It might have actually popped out of a wormhole. Used for long interstellar journeys by a high technological civilization, which opened up just outside the orbit of Jupiter, and just this thing popped out. I mean, we've seen these things have been detected much closer to home. For example, in Tear in the Sky, that film by Caroline Corey. So basically, is this where UFOs come from? Do UFOs come from machines like this? What Loeb refers to as the gadgets that it releases. It's an extraordinary thing to ask, but it's completely rational based on the evidence we've seen. We know that UFOs and aliens do not originate from our own solar system. We used to think they might come from Mars or Venus. Then we learned what Mars and Venus were really like, and so no, they must come from much further afield. Now, UFOs that are often described as quite small, sometimes smaller than human aircraft. Yet the biological entities that often accompany them are often comparable in size to humans, either slightly bigger, slightly smaller, but they're not little ants, they're not little insects. So it's likely that the vehicles they use, the flying saucers they're often seen in, traverse much shorter distances, probably from a forward operating base, much closer, maybe even on the Earth itself. I mean, you might have seen Richard Dolan the other day talking about this new UFO base that may have been discovered in Arizona, USA. Melinda Leslie was talking about that. There's another one said to be in other parts of North America, Alaska, Hawaii, under the sea, Spain. There's supposedly one in the Pyrenees Mountains. They're always in places quite out of the way where we can't see them. And they are being elusive, of course. Now, they may have colonies on other planets too. I mean, the most likely spot, I think, is probably the moon, because especially the dark side of the moon, or the far side of the moon, to give it its proper name, because it's not actually dark. It receives as much sunlight as the near side of the moon does. In fact, it even has phases like the near side. It's called dark side because it's on the other side. It faces away from the Earth. And that's the point. There's 4.5 million square miles of real estate there, which is completely, it's actually one of the few places in the entire universe that is completely invisible from the Earth's surface for a reason other than sheer distance. And it's right next door in cosmic terms. So I reckon that's probably where they are. They may have bases in various places. As I've said many times, there's more than one species visiting us. They probably come from different areas. The longer journey to wherever these beings originate is going to be traversed with much larger vessels. Maybe 3I Atlas is one of these vessels. Now, it's pretty clear that these beings, whatever they are, whatever their mission is here on Earth, they want to carry on with it. They want to carry on with it unobserved and uninterrupted by human activity. And we already know that they are elusive. They don't want to be interrupted or observed by us. They take steps to avoid contact with us, except in certain circumstances, abductions and things like that, and contact. But this well-known and established detail would fit in with this strange trajectory of the interstellar object. As I've already said, it's making close approaches to all the inner planets except Earth. In fact, it could be said that the timing of its arrival, together with its course, is ideal for maximizing stealth. So it's getting as close to all the planets as it can while avoiding Earth. This does not mean it's going to succeed in avoiding observation, and we've already detected it. We've gained a lot of information from it. This is probably not what these beings intended. And we have the possibility, even though the Earth itself is in a bad position, our own telescopes, we're not dependent on telescopes from the Earth. We have spacecraft orbiting Mars and Jupiter. The Mars Global Observer, which Loeb has already mentioned, but there's also Tianwen-1, the Chinese probe, and then there's the Mars Odyssey. If they are repurposed, they're going to pick up some really good data in just a few weeks' time. And of course, this is all dependent on the object staying on course. Of course, if it changes its course or velocity, who knows what could happen. Now, it's important not to have nightmares. I mean, we've had some really incredible headlines. I mean, look, let me just show you some of the bloody headlines. Hang on a sec. Here we go. I'll just Google 3I Atlas alien of 3I Atlas. This alien invasion. If you just Google this. Hang on, I'll show you. I'll let you see this. And now click news. 3I Atlas alien invasion news. Look at this here. This is just unbelievable. Some of these things. The Lad Bible. Hostile alien threat. Aliens coming. Here we go. And it goes on. Hostile alien spacecraft to attack the Earth this November. And it gets worse. I mean, my favorite is Y on News. The Y on News is, I've got a note of it here. Alien attack in November. Harvard scientist warns of mystery object hurtling towards the Earth. Now these ridiculous banners, they have nothing to do with scientific reality, and I think they're just to do with the ad-infested pages that you're encouraged to click on. That's what it's all about. If 3I Atlas is an alien spaceship, which is looking increasingly likely, I mean, on the Loeb scale, he has this Loeb scale where 0 means 1 means a completely natural object, and 10 means definitely an alien spaceship. He designated it as 4, but he's got to raise that now. I would put that up to 9.5. Come on. But if it is exactly that, an intelligently controlled vehicle, you've got to be on your guard. All right, you've got to be on your guard. Honestly, if Bill Pullman comes out and starts making a really crappy speech, I'll head for the hills. But look, if you and I, we sleep easily at night, knowing that we're already being visited anyway by various ETs. We have been for a long, long time, long before any of us were born. So what difference does the presence of just one more craft make? Why should that bother us? And we'll hopefully learn more soon, I expect. Hopefully we'll find out more. But funnily enough, there's some other weird things. Now, if you go to, there's this astrology, there's parade of the planets. What is it? Here we go. Hang on. Of planets. Apparently, it's going on right now. It's reaching its peak at the moment. Actually, the 6-planet parade. I don't know if you've seen this. There's apparently a 6-planet parade going on. Friday it's peaking Friday, but it's going to, you can see it for a couple of weeks before and after as well. But basically, August planet alignment, 6 planets on the moon parade. So you have all these planets here: Mercury, get out of the way, Venus, Jupiter, Moon, and there's a couple of others somewhere. I think there was more than one. Hang on, where are images? Here we are. Look, this is it. Look. Here's the Earth, of course, then Mars, Jupiter, Uranus, Saturn, Venus, Neptune, Mercury. Now, I don't know what I mean. I don't know if any of you are into astrology. I mean, I'm not a big astrology buff, but I mean, I do take it seriously. I do. I do take it. I do think it's possible. Is there a connection here? I don't know. Now, that if you go to YouTube, there's all kinds of weird videos making all kinds of claims. I mean, this has really captured the imagination. So, for example, I mentioned the angry astronaut, 3I Atlas. There we go. 3I Atlas, interstellar object. Now you go through this. There's loads of these videos. On some of them, this News Nation. That's actually and a huge plasma outbursts are heading towards 3I Atlas. And again, this is probably one of the nonsense ones. There's another one claiming that Neil deGrasse Tyson has now admitted it's aliens, which is not true. I've already watched that. That's Paul Begley. That's the one with Avi. There's Avi again. You see, look, some of this is, look, massive structure, 100 times bigger than 3I Atlas. Again, a lot of this is nonsense. Michio Kaku, he hasn't. I think that's not a real picture of him gasping. But there's another one which claims there was some kind of signal. Now, I was watching it yesterday. I can't find it now. There was one claiming that literally on the 30th of June, that's just the day before it's discovered, an astronomer discovered some kind of signal coming from this object, from the part of the sky of this object. I suspect that's not true. I suspect that's apocryphal, and you're going to get that. You're going to get this kind of sensationalism, unfortunately. But there is a kind of like there's several theories. Now, Angry Astronaut did a video about this, where he's got his own theory, and because he mentioned that there was a star which was surrounded by an accretion disk. This is a massive amount of dust, which then is designed to be formed into planets, and it disappeared very quickly. And he claims that maybe it was like converted into something else by nanotechnology, and he suspects there may be nanotechnology on this object which is converting the interstellar medium into something, and that's what we're seeing in terms of this dust. Dust is a bit of a habit word for astronomers, apparently, according to AA. Dust. They say everything's dust, in the same way doctors say everything's viruses when they don't know what it is. I find it interesting, actually, that dust is like in the Philip Pullman's Dark Materials trilogy, and the sequels. There's this Book of Dust, and there's the various spin-off novellas he wrote. The man himself is a complete tosser, but he does write very, very good books. The primordial substance of the universe in the Philip Pullman universe is called dust. When the daemons, these creatures that walk beside you, these souls that are in the form of animals that everyone has walking beside them, when you die, they turn into clouds of this dust. Everything is dust. There's this scene where there's this dust, where you put on this amber spyglass and you can see the dust. You look and you can see the dust actually flying through the air, and it's being sucked out of the world, and these giant trees die and things like this because they're losing their dust. It's a very interesting idea indeed. Very interesting indeed. Now, of course, the backslappers have got in on this because there's Jeremy Corbell, not Jeremy Corbell. Let's go to alien scientists first. Jeremy Riss. Now, what's interesting about him is, like, you may be familiar with him. He made this. Where's this video he did a little while ago? Fake alien invasion, UFO psyops, go full force. Danny Jones. I'm not going to play it because I've had enough copyright issues recently. Yeah. By the way, if any of you are waiting for the updated version of conspiracy theory deprogramming, I did say that will be in my next video. I can't do it right now. When I started on it on Tuesday, and I realized it was it was a far bigger job than I thought it was going to be, editing wise. I did about a quarter of it, and I spent all evening on it. So it's going to take longer than I thought. But I will get it done. But like I said, don't worry, because I mean, this basically also this got in the way. What I'm talking about today got in the way. But do bear in mind that at the time of recording this, it's still available on all the alt tech platforms, so you can go and watch it there if you want. Just go and watch it on one of my alt tech sites, and it's on 3 of them. It's on all 3 of them, so you don't have to wait for the updated YouTube version. But anyway, alien scientists called, like, he's claiming, he says, like, because Jeremy Corbell did this thing a little while ago where he said, he says there's something coming to the, and I don't know how much of this I can play, because craft approaching the Earth. Craft approach. He said this, and it was in that strange. What if an alien spaceship is heading to the Earth? Where is it? Here we go. Imminent craft. Here we are, heading to the Earth. Now, I play the audio, but anyway.
Is that lie is going to be that there is a craft slowly making its way to us here on Earth.
You should really hear this.
And that is the lie they're going to want you to believe.
Of this object appears to be
They've
quite...
got Avi now. They've got Avi on there now. This is kind of a mixture of things anyway. You can watch bits of it.
remarkable. It arrives within...
But that 100% is the lie you are going to be told. You even got a date. People have been whispering a date for a long time now. I know where that lie comes from. I know specifically what document from the 70s initiated the idea of that lie.
Okay, now what he's basically, you've probably seen this anyway. What he's basically saying is there's a craft coming towards the Earth, and it's going to be used for the fake alien invasion. Now, Jeremy Riss, alien scientist, also said this in his video, and he does it in his usual way through gritted teeth because he hates Jeremy Corbell. And he says, "I said this 14 years ago, man. I said this 14 years ago. And this motherfucker, Corbell comes on and gets 15 times as many views as me." The thing about Jeremy Riss, not Corbell, Riss. It's a testimony to the fact that backslappers often don't get on with each other, because he and Andrew Johnson hate each other. Andrew's always slagging him off. He's always slagging Andrew off. Because of course you may say, well, they're just so alike. They're both such massive backslappers. They are both very typical of backslappers. They are self-obsessed. They are heartless. They are arrogant, narcissistic. They tend to bully people a lot, and so he and Andrew Johnson are very similar, but they don't get on. And I've often noticed this with backslappers, that they don't get on with each other. There's a rivalry. There's a very bitter rivalry within the backslapper community over who can be the biggest backslapper. Basically, the thing about it is, once you become a backslapper, you can't have any sense of community, because the whole purpose of being a backslapper is to be the hardest man, the one who can face the truth, man, the one who knows that everything's a psyop, man, and I'm better than everyone else, man. All right, once you start down that backslapper route, you can't share it with anyone else, because you have to be better than them too. So backslappers can't get on. They never get on, because there'll always be this possibility the other person is more of a backslapper than them. And they can say, yes, but you don't believe this and you think this, so therefore you're naive and I'm better than you and I can face the truth because I'm a real backslapper, man. All right, you always, yes, man. You know, there's always that element. I mean, being a backslapper is essentially it's a very pessimistic outlook on life. It's almost it's nihilistic and defeatist. And, you know, nothing can ever get any better, according to the backslappers. So the moment you show any hint of, like, positivity, they jump on you. They pounce on you the other backslappers will gang up on you. And I see this with Jeremy Riss, because he's like going on about how the whole thing, everything's a psyop. This, what we're seeing with 3 IAtlas, is a psyop. Avi Loeb is an agent of some kind. I mean, some people are saying he's Mossad. There's no evidence that he's in Mossad, apart from the fact he's Israeli. And not every Israeli is in Mossad. I mean, Uri Geller, I think, is, but then he's kind of like, there's evidence for that, and he's kind of confessed it, and there's evidence to back it up. But, you know, that's like saying that I'm in MI5 because I'm British. Now, I know many backslappers think I am in MI5, but No, but if it's being rational, it's not. It's really a silly thing. It's a silly thing to say, but it's funny enough though. But of course, he is saying. I mean, he's saying that there's this fake alien invasion coming. Project Bluebeam, nuclear fusion powered craft are going to fill the skies, and they're going to pretend it's aliens to justify the last card. The last card, as Carol Rosin called it, the last card. And this is could be what we're seeing now. We're seeing the beginning of this. Now, I can't rule that out, to be honest. I can't rule out that this could be the prelude to that very situation. I mean, Carol did say, in the mid 70s, Werner von Braun was predicting the end of the Cold War within a decade. And what happened literally within 9 years of him saying that, Mikhail Gorbachev took power and the Cold War wound down. Then the Russia itself, the Russian Federation rose from the Soviet Union. Now, that wasn't intended by the powers that be, but it happened. And then he said the next would be the asteroids. Well, we've got fear of asteroid impact. I mean, there's films like Deep Impact and Armageddon, and we've got the DART program from NASA, which is essentially a space-based weapon, the very sort that Carol Rosin was fearful of. And then the last card, she said, Carol, you will stop the weaponization of space, and the last card they will play, the last card will be the fear of the aliens, evil aliens attacking us as an excuse to weaponize space. And the weaponized space meaning the ability to control the surface of the Earth through space-based weapons, not out of fear of something coming from outside. And is that what's happening now? I can't rule it out. I can't be sure that's not the case. But right now, I'm not going to assume that automatically, all right? Because I'm not a backslapper. I can live with the scorn of being a tiny little bit positive and optimistic. I mean, dickheads like Andrew Johnson who they want to look down their nose and lord it over everybody. And if the only answer you can give these tossers, I think, is to stick one finger up at them and saying, "I don't care. Think what you like." I think that's the only response you can give to them. Now, what Corbell? See, some people claim that what Corbell said. He's saying there's a craft coming. That's what you're going to be told. There's a craft coming. That might not necessarily refer to 3 IAtlas. It could be something else. Now, according to alien scientists, they knew about 3 IAtlas like years ago and didn't tell anyone. Well, how do they keep it a secret? How do you keep that kind of secret in the astronomical community when there's so many telescopes and so many astronomers? Second problem, second problem is it could have also come from the plot line of quite a popular novel now that's out and about at the moment called Three Body Problem. It's actually a book I've read that book. It's by Cixin Liu, a Chinese author. Unusually enough, China doesn't export a lot of its contemporary artwork, and it's been made into. There's a Chinese TV series, and there's also one on Netflix, which is not as good. But the Netflix one is worth watching. I'd say it's a good summary of the plot. But that's kind of the plot within that. There's a book called The Dark Forest, which follows it, and which deals with the dark forest hypothesis. Is there's aliens everywhere, and they're just keeping out of each other's way, just in case, and they're being stealthy with each other, just in case we find out, in case it turns out that there's any bad guys out there. And seeing as oddly as Stephen Hawking, who I mentioned earlier, he actually just said we shouldn't announce our presence to the cosmos because we don't know who's out there listening. It could be somebody who might do us harm. You see, I don't think you can eliminate that possibility, but at the same time, if we assume it's true every single time, yeah, we will. We'll get to the top of the backslapper parade, man. We'll be on the bigger top podium, getting our gold medal for being the best backslapper, man. All right, so you can lord it over yourself, and people will come up and they'll kiss your ass and they'll suck your feet. All right, you're right, okay. That's you get that, all right. You get to be the biggest backslapper in the dark alleyways, man, and you strut around going, "I'm the big backslapper," all right. You get that, but the price we pay is we may lose a unique opportunity, the opportunity of acknowledgement of possible willing disclosure, or the force, essentially a catastrophic disclosure situation, which would force an attempt at controlled disclosure. That's what we lose if we lose that street cred. We don't look so good. We don't get all those personal accolades. We don't look cool, man, as we strut down the street like that, knowing we're the best backslapper. All right, and we know that people like Andrew Johnson will go for that, but then the price the rest of us pay for his self-aggrandizement is we lose the opportunity to change the world and end the truth embargo. So in my word, that's a price not worth paying. I'm certainly not paying for Andrew Johnson's narcissism. So we'll see what happens there. I mean, we're going to find out. We have to find out more soon. We will find out more soon. But I'm just going to double check I've got everything from my notes, and I think I have. And there's really not much more to add now, except we're going to have to wait and see. But I like to say, if we can get one of the Mars orbiters to get them repurposed to get a really good look at 3 IAtlas as it zooms past on the 3rd of October, literally within just 5 or 6 weeks, we may know everything. We may know everything, unless of course it changes course. But, well, you can be sure, whatever happens, whatever developments there are, whatever news emerges out of this subject, you will hear about it first, live and exclusive on Hapanwo TV. Yes, I'm not going to go away from this subject, I promise you. Thank you, all of you, for watching Hapanwo TV. There'll be more coming soon. I'll be doing my... I will get that bloody thing done. I will do the YouTube version of that Skeptic of the North thing. But it's going to take a while. It'll be sometime next week. And of course, I'm off this weekend. I'm off to Warminster 60. So if you're going, I'll see you there. I'll be doing some kind of reportage, either audio or video. If it's video, it'll be on this channel. If it's audio, it'll be on Hapanwo Radio. But either way, I will be reporting on it. So that's something fun I'm looking forward to. And there's other things coming up as well. I'm doing my Dorset tour. I'm going to the Day for Freedom. Oh, there's loads coming up in the next few weeks. And then, of course... Well, that's if 3 IAtlas doesn't head straight our way. Anyway, in the meantime, thank you all of you for watching Hapanwo TV. Hospital Port as pride and dignity. Stop the New World Order.